Okay, guys, we're gonna just get into a little bit of set piece work. Just kind of go through an option play. In men's, we call it YBH. I've called it in the past lightning, different things like that. Basic rugby option play. First thing that I want to talk about is coming out for this set piece play. If you think about a traditional set, you'd normally be set up in this kind of steep back line against a flat defensive back line. Now we're going to change things up, and so your set alignment, or coming out of this scrum, or coming out of this line out, or coming out of this ruck, you're going to move that 13 wide, and you can see when we move that from that traditional set to that wider 13, the other opposing 13 is gonna move out, and we want to create somewhat of a gap here. Now you're going to have the opposing 15 that's going to be back in kick defense. They're going to look maybe possibly to fill that gap, but for the most part we should be able to create that gap. If that doesn't happen and that 13 doesn't go out, we're going to have a gap on the outside here that we're going to try and create. So we're making that 13 choose between one or the other. And that's your kind of basic setup here. From here, what you're going to see happen is you sometimes think, well, that 13 is too wide, the 10 can't make that pass, but our 10 in this case is actually going to be traveling in a path where they're going to come up and they're going to head out, and so this pass is going to be reasonable to that 13. So the pass to the 13 isn't going to be an issue. We are going to be able to make that pass with most capable 10s. Anyway, so kind of the first thing that's going to happen here is you're going to see a pass from that 9 to the 10, and the 12 is going to run a switch line with the 10, and so you can see that happen there. Just to kind of review that quickly, the line that your 12 should be running, your 10 is going to be running a line up and out, 12 is going to be running a line up and kind of cross here on that switch line, and then hopefully cut it up. That switch line's targeting that gap between the 10 and maybe the loosies, or if the loosie's over aggressive, then the tight 5, between that tight 5. And so we are running that switch line in there tight, and so we're going to end up in kind of that second step here where the 10 has gave that switch option. Could have dumped the pass here on the switch, okay, but in most cases that switch is really just to freeze these two defenders here, get them communicating on that switch and not worried about whatever's happening on the outside here. So from there, what we want to see happen, even though that 12 is an option, you may want to give a couple of those option plays there early in the game. Anyways, so from here we're going to move on to the next step, which would be our 15 is going to hide behind this switch, and they're going to hopefully pop through this gap right here. There should be a gap there. Now, when there may not be a gap there, okay, would be when the 13 maybe decides to come in and jump on the 15. But typically, if we can draw that 13 out and get him locked in out here, we have that gap that we want through kind of the middle here. And that 15 is going to be a little bit reluctant to come up and fill that hole right away, because they're part of that kick defense, and so the threat of a kick kind of holds that 15 a little bit and going to make them reluctant to come up there. So basically from here you kind of move on to that next step. After that switch line's ran by the 12, you can see that the 15 is going to pop through that gap. Now what's going to happen here, hopefully, like I said, we have that 13 locked up outside, and then we move from there. The 15 is going to bust through that first line of defense. Now since the defense was moving in a forward direction, the 13 and the 12, it allows us to have momentum with the 10 and the 13 as lines of support here. And so when that 15 steps up late, and typically they're going to step up late to stop that other 15, we should have two passing options to both the 10 here, or we should have a passing option to the 13, and then typically that's kind of try time at that point. If we've got through that second line of defense, good chance that we are going to be scoring from there, okay, one way or the other. And so that's kind of our first thing that we're looking for, and really that's going to be based on that 10's ability to read where that 13 is here. Now, if the 13 chooses the other option, so going back to the start, if the 13 chooses, okay, to instead cut in and try and take that 15 on. Okay, then what we need to see here is this missed pass that you just saw there from the 10 to the 13, and then we should have a similar scenario there, okay, where we get through, and once we get through, okay, that hole between the 14 and the 13 this time around, 15 is going to have to eventually step up. Usually they're late though, and then we should be able to get a pass here or here in the opening. Most of the time this one's going to be to the outside here. Once again, because the defense is blitzing forward here, we're able to get through where they typically aren't, through here, and then that ball can be passed outside and we're scoring. Okay, so that's kind of the basis of our option play. If you kind of just review that and think about how that works, is really it comes down to, at this stage right here, the 10 is your kind of key decision maker in this play. After that switch line, he needs to decide, okay, where's that 13 at? If the 13's narrow here, the pass needs to go outside here. If the 13 decides to play it wide, then he needs to hit that short pop pass to the 15 here. Either way, we should have a gap either here, or if the 13's in, then we should have a gap on the outside. And we're really counting on that 15 not joining in too soon, and this guy coming a little late, and then we getting through that first line of defense, and then be able to move the ball beyond that. That's about it. That's a simple play, but sometimes simple stuff works in rugby. So that's it.